Oh, did that put us down at the bottom? Is that what it did?
What you talking about?
Never mind. Nothing. What's up, Brett?
All right, here we are. Getting set up. Did my lights kick in? Yes. Yes, they did. Good. Having a little automation problem with that earlier. All right. People streaming in here. I want to make sure the Facebooks are going.
What's up, Jeff? What's up, Thomas?
Facebook's
Thomas,
good.
I feel like it's been forever since I've seen you. At least 3 days.
There we go. Thomas. All right.
Dave, do you want to get lunch tomorrow?
Probably not, because I have a lot of projects to do tomorrow.
All right.
Like, I can't even take my kid to the doctor.
I took my kid to the doctor today.
Julie's doing that. Let's see.
Brett, no, I don't think Dave made the music. It's music that we bought, right? Not that music.
What? At the
On-
intro?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just Spotify.
Dave does make beautiful
Brock
music.
Barrington.
Brock Barrington.
Yeah. It is. It's Barrigan. The Waiting Game is the name of the... There's a bunch of variations people have done on that, too. On the chill hops. You know. The chill hops. All right. Looks like we got people in here. And we've got...
Please don't, Jags.
What?
He said, Matt, I'm going to come bug you and give you a massage. It's the only way to do a show, right?
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Oh, get my notes. And we'll start
I just found a Monster Energy drink that I didn't think I had. That's exciting. The day's looking up. It's looking up.
Oh, Gil.
Oh, Gil.
All right. Oh, and the only other thing I forgot to mention to you earlier is at the end it will be a different intro or a
Yes.
different naming scheme. At the end I'll say, "I'm Dave." Matt will say, "I'm Matt," and then
Matt,
you
and
say
then you
your
say-
name at the end.
Okay.
Rather than being
Sure.
introduced, so we don't take you off guard. You know.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Here we go. What's up, and welcome to another Mograph Mocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt, and joining us today is the super talented Steffi Fung.
Hi, guys.
And Mograph is a supplement to our site, mograph.com, which is a motion graphics tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other Mograph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects, plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man. You can email us info@mograph.com. Let us know what you think about the show. Questions, comments, concerns, queries, grievances, artist suggestions, show topic ideas. We are on the interwebs on the mograph.coms and the YouTubes. If you want to check us out on there, send us your suggestions. We want to know what you want to hear on the show. We want to know what you are having issues with. If you are like trying to build something, trying to do something technically, we want to know what struggles you're having. If you are working for the man or being a contractor or whatever that is, like what are the issues that face you right now as a designer, as an artist? Send us your questions. info@mograph.com.
Nothing
really,
too noob. Nothing too noob.
No, you're
No,
saying
no.
is,
I'm saying
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't send us anything that you think is too noob.
Yes.
We'll answer it anyway.
yeah,
And
there
send us
is
everything.
no noob question.
There
He's
is
not
no noob
saying
question.
don't send us noob questions. Yeah. Send us the noob questions because it's probably
Yes.
the only thing we can answer. So
Right, more than likely, yes.
I think that's fair. Yes. And then as far as the week wrap up, real quick, there's not too much going on. Summer, people
Did some
starting to-
Rococo stuff.
Yeah. So
Over the week.
it's May. People are trying to graduate, and
Yeah.
people's kids are finishing school and whatnot. But yeah, we did some Rococo stuff this week. Jags was in town.
Still is.
He still is in town. He's in the other room.
He's in the other
your
room. Yeah.
other room.
Hi, Jax. Yep.
Last week he was here. Now he's there. We had a lot of fun. We hung out. We hung with Dallas designers a little bit. Had a little barbecue action. Unfortunately, Sam couldn't make it from Rococo, so we spent a day kind of getting familiar with the suits, which was nice. Figuring out the Wi-Fi setup, how you could, all that. And I gotta say, after you figure out the little things that you have to do to get the thing working, it does work pretty well. It's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I especially in comparison to the first gen one that I've seen. I've seen some people have some major issues with the first gen. The second gen is what we got, and it seemed pretty good.
Yeah.
Seemed pretty good.
So now that we've done that, Jags has been, videoing and all that. VJ says, how can I get a notification last time? I actually messaged you on something and asked you if you were around this weekend.
That's all your fault, dude. Sorry.
It was fun, and Jags is going to have a whole video he does on it and everything, and I'm sure we're going to be posting experiments, and we got a lot of fun just random clips of us doing silly things.
Yep.
So we'll see where that goes. But here's the deal. Once we get these characters rigged and actually working, we're going to need some digital clothing for these characters, which leads us into our interview today, because we are going to talk all about digital fashion. What is the proper term?
It is, as you said it, digital fashion.
Okay, cool.
There's no other glamorous way to describe it.
Well, that's good. See, I'm noob to this whole thing, and it's kind of a new thing in general when you think about it. So I'm ready to learn all about how to do this, because my experience with digital clothing is opening Marvelous Designer for about 15 minutes. That's about it.
Yep.
But let's start
trying to figure out a tutorial, and then seeing that all the tutorials are 5 years old, and you're like, this UI looks different. Yep.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning though, and introduce yourself to everybody, and give everybody an idea of who you are and what you do in general.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm Steffi Fung. Thank you for having me on here. I am a 3D digital fashion artist, which, of course, 2 years ago, I would not believe I'd be saying something like that, for sure. So I guess just a small bit about my background. I studied graphic design, moved into motion design, as many people do, and then now doing digital fashion. So my journey has been not linear, for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So I spoke at my wife's school for technology, and last week, and I had to speak to a bunch of graphic designers, and my wife was like, "Do you think will this translate?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I always say that 3D motion designers, the best ones come from a graphic design background,
And it's so common, right?
Mm-hmm. Very, yeah. It's like I want to make this title move, right?
That's the part that I found more exciting, because studying graphic design, I was not excited by poster creation or editorial publications. The exciting part for me was when it animated. So I think I probably saw Grayscale Gorilla at the time, and iDesign, and I saw their YouTube tutorials, and I was like, wow, how do I do that? And then I just started learning. And I would say a lot of my technical skills that I've learned for my career now, I did not learn it from university. I learned it from YouTube, honestly.
Same.
YouTube is literally my go-to.
YouTube University, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what kind of got you into this? Like, was there one moment in specifically, obvious? Well, would say obviously, but maybe not obviously. I figure you were in 3D before you got to the 3D clothing, right?
Yes, that's right.
What was your intro into 3D in general from graphic design? Like, what really sparked that interest?
Well, for me, I think growing up as a kid, I was really infatuated or really inspired by Pixar, Disney, Ghibli. I love animation. I love the storytelling aspect. So I think that's the reason why I was more drawn to animation and 3D motion design. But for digital fashion, it wasn't ever a time where I was like, yeah, digital fashion, or just like fashion in general, that's what I want to do. I kind of just fell into it. And the first project that got me introduced to digital fashion was one that I worked on in a collective called DigiGirl. So DIGI.GXL. They are a collective or community for female or LGBTQ plus led 3D artists. And the 3D artists in there, they They did fashion, they did AR, VR, you name it, anything to do with that realm. So I think for me joining that group, because it was just a place for me to be able to relate to a lot of other 3D artists who are, I would say, the minority for sure. And so we as a collective grew, I think this must have been like 2019. And we got a lot of opportunities thrown at us for sure as a collective. And one of them was to create a collection, a digital fashion collection for this luxury retail store called Selfridges in London. And they reached out to DigiGirl to create some. I believe it was maybe six or seven outfits. And so they kind of put out a board asking if anyone who wants to apply for this opportunity, and I decided to go for it. Now, at that time, I did not know digital fashion. I was there to do texturing, camera animation, lighting. So that was my job. There was at least 3 of us 3D artists creating the environment for these digital garments to live in. And then I got to meet the other 2, or I got to see the other 2 digital fashion artists and see their work. And they were working in Clo 3D, I believe, or Marvelous Designer. And I just looked at their file with question marks. I was like, what is this? How did you do this? And then whilst working on that project, I realized how compatible our 3D skills is. Like, if you guys know 3D, you're already halfway there. It's more so if you guys are interested in digital fashion, you got to learn, of course, like fashion terms, how to actually like how they do it in real life, like cuts patterns and how they sew things together. So that's the only missing knowledge, I would say. But if you've got 3D knowledge, you know how to think in 3D, you know how to texture, do lighting and animate, and you got that down. So it's actually not a far jump to learn digital fashion.
That was going to be my next question too, was the actual fashion side of it. It's like, it's not enough just to learn Marvelous if you don't know anything about fashion. So where does that come from? And I guess how much of it do you need to know? Is it dependent on the client?
Yeah. I mean, I still have a huge imposter syndrome when it comes to fashion. I don't have a fashion background. As I said, I've got a graphic design background, which is it's still pretty useful. But I think if you guys are interested in learning how to make clothes, you don't necessarily need to know a lot of fashion before starting. I would say, as I said, I've learned everything from YouTube, and that's pretty much how I've slowly built up my fashion knowledge. I think now I'm at the point where I can start looking at fashion books and actually looking at how they apply it in real life, and then take that knowledge and then now apply that to my 3D. So I would say, no, you don't need a lot of fashion knowledge, but of course with anything, you just slowly build it up, and you will get to learn it as you do the job.
How do you how would somebody listening right now who's never touched any of it before, how would they get into it, and what would you recommend that they use, like even software wise, and then like what simple patterns could they start out with to try and learn?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the question that I get asked the most is, should I use Marvelous Designer or should I use Clo 3D? And I'm like, in my opinion, I think they are very similar, very the same, but they do have different use cases. So I think if you are a 3D artist and your garments, or if you're making pillows, curtains, bags, if you're going to make those types of objects and they're only going to live in the digital realm, like on screens, then Marvelous Designer is pretty much for you. If you guys are thinking of potentially, like, if you've got a fashion background and you want to, in the future, create all of these bags and garments and whatever it is, these fabrics, and then export it into real life, like physical garments, then Clo 3D has the extra features that you are able to do that. So it depends what realm you are working in and where your work is going to go into.
Is it called Clo 3D?
That's right, CLO 3D.
Okay. I've never heard of it. The only things that I've heard of as far as like 3D clothing is, Marvelous Designer, and then using Vellum and Houdini and stuff like that.
Sure. They're
Yeah.
actually owned by the same company, I believe,
Oh,
or sister
interesting.
company, I believe. So, I think until last year they decided to change the look of Marvelous Designer because the two programs really did look the same. They were very
Interesting.
similar. But I would say Clo 3D has more features, and especially if you come from a fashion background, they have an inbuilt renderer in Clo 3D. I think they use V-Ray. So,
Okay.
especially for people who don't already have another 3D external renderer or they don't know how to use Blender or Cinema 4D, then Clo 3D is like the whole package in one.
That's cool. That's really cool.
I think I have a little bit of like, I don't know what you call it, like, not really PTSD, but kind of PTSD, because anytime I try and work with clothing, or not clothing, but cloth in
Yes.
general, in any sort of 3D program, I've had a lot of trouble. You know, things just not behaving correctly.
That's what it
yeah.
does.
Matt's
It does
doing,
that. It does
yeah,
that.
Matt's doing the motion. It just the polygons everywhere. And so when I see like these clips on Instagram of, you know, you take these patterns and you sew them together, and then you see it kind of like fluttering around and like, you know, just kind of relaxing onto
Yeah.
the subject. I get that anxiety. Like, are there times you hit the button and the thing just freaks out, or is it pretty stable?
What you just described, it happens all the time.
Okay, all right.
It still happens a lot of the time, and there are some certain techniques you have to look out for, especially when what you just described is most likely when two fabrics or when two polygons are so close to each other that they decide to intersect each other, and when they decide to touch, then they just freak out and they just start flapping everywhere, which then causes your program to crash, which is never a good situation. But it does happen. I mean, yeah, limitations wise, yes, it does still happen in certain, like, I would say for my work, where I usually grab an avatar and I have it walk in a walking cycle, I have a lot of difficulties between the sleeves, where it hits the hips when the arms are swinging.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Because that is where the hands or where the fabric might intersect each other. It's where it's most likely to do that. So that has always been a pain point for me, which is something I'm actively trying to work out, like the best workflow for that. But yes, it does happen, and I'm
Just
just
never
praying.
put any sleeves, right? Just
Yeah.
always go sleeveless.
Right. Yes.
I was gonna say
Absolutely.
that's a pain point when you're doing like just the capture in general. Like this week we had the same thing. It's like the hand is going through the body, you know. So that's already a bad start. And then you try and like pull that out, but then you add that extra layer of, okay, now you have clothes on top of that. Now you got to deal with that. Yeah, that's I can imagine that there's a lot of frustrating moments in general when dealing with that kind of a thing.
Yes, and especially if you're dealing with animation, the thing is in Clo 3D or Marvelous Designer, you're dealing with simulations, and if you know simulations, they are very unpredictable. So
Right.
sometimes they work. You wait for it to bake and do its thing, and it works, and sometimes it doesn't. So
Gosh, I can
that
imagine a lot of waiting.
Yeah.
A lot of waiting.
yes, especially if you want to do anything intricate within like the details of the garments or anything like that.
What about like?
Let me ask.
Sorry.
No,
Go
so I
ahead.
was gonna say, so like, how much do like, okay, so Clo 3D and stuff, like, you know, you've probably got some big fashion designers, I'm assuming, using this stuff, you know, and like, is there a point in which the motion design world meets the 3D or the fashion design world, and they just kind of like you become really well known in the fashion industry? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, asking if more 3D designers are going to be using this program. Is
Well,
that
no,
your
if-
question?
He's saying,
Yeah.
are there going to be some 3D designers that start getting so good at doing this that they become popular in the fashion industry?
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Ah.
she's motion graphics famous, but she's also fashion industry
Yeah.
famous. You know, that kind
Yeah.
of a thing.
That's one of my goals.
There you go. All right.
One of my goals. You know, it's something as in I would love to start up my own digital fashion brand, which is, as I said, I would have never imagined that would be one of my goals
Right.
maybe a year ago or 2 years
Right.
ago. But I think, especially with 3D and digital fashion, they are 3D essentially.
Mhm.
Okay. And there is a huge gap between digital fashion designers with a 3D background currently. There's not enough people that does it, that understand 3D. So
Mhm.
I'm kind of trying to push and advocate for more 3D designers to come into this realm, because it really is it's a new industry for one, but also along with the hype of the metaverse and avatars that's happening,
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely going to be more jobs and more fashion brands want more 3D artists who can create these digital fashion garments as well.
Have you
Yeah,
ever
and
like worn one of the things that you designed, like in real life?
Not in real life. I've worn them digitally. I would
Yeah.
love to wear them in real life one day.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty satisfying to design
Mhm.
something like that and then be able to actually wear it.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah,
when it comes,
before the show, I was asking you about Dress X because I had never heard of that before, and it seems like that is a very an introduction to like the metaverse and like being able to buy and sell digital clothing. That's crazy, you know?
It's a thing, and actually, it's happening now. People are actually buying digital clothes to wear, whether it's, I think the use case now is like social media or like
Mm-hmm.
influencers,
Mhm.
especially because they like to, I suppose they tend to wear a lot of different clothes at a fast pace. So with
Right.
digital fashion, you're able to iterate quickly. You're able to create different kinds of clothes you can wear, and
Wow.
there will be a lot less waste. So there is quite a
Mm-hmm.
good amount of, yeah, there's a good reason to use digital fashion for that type of job, I suppose.
How
Mhm.
does that work with like movement and stuff? You know, like is it I don't know how DressX works in particular, but I would assume, there's got to be some sort of like you export it out to a GLTF file and then it some kind of does its own thing, as far as like the simulation.
hmm So I suppose there's two ways of wearing digital fashion. The
Hmm.
first way is to upload a photo, and then they will just like, I'm not quite sure if they use
Interesting.
AR, if they will Photoshop it on top of you. So
Mhm.
Hmm.
that's one way. The second way, you're talking about motion, so that
Yeah.
would be done by augmented reality filters, which
Hmm.
I would say Snapchat is
Okay.
probably the best one at capturing body tracking and having
Mhm.
Hmm.
the movements as well. So I know, Snapchat has really pioneered like the body tracking and digital fashion
Hmm.
wearing in that
Yeah.
realm.
I've
That's
seen a
what
bunch of stuff that
Don Allen.
Don Allen has
Yeah.
done, yeah,
Yeah.
with Snapchat and the full body tracking.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
He's
it's pretty cool.
he's really like he is leaning into that big time right
Hmm.
now. Like the tracking and then green screening and you see his tests and stuff. It is definitely in its infancy.
Hmm.
hmm
I'm sure that all this tracking stuff in the next 10 years is just going to become
Second nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
insanely
Yeah.
good, like, and
Hmm.
it's going to match the lighting, and the more you get like faster phones and all of that, you're going to have better processors, and they can
Hmm.
process like all of this fabric movement in real time, and all of that. But you've got some pictures actually on your Instagram. So um, is this from DressX?
This one is a project that I did with Highsnobiety and Glenfiddich. So they reached out to me, I think last year, to create three different outfits based off of their uh, whiskey brand and their
Cool.
alcohol
I
brand,
was
which
gonna
I,
say
Uh-huh.
for whiskey, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
so it was very interesting when I read that email. I thought, hold on, whiskey and digital fashion, this doesn't make sense. But you know what? They are interested and they want to experiment and they put their trust in me to create something, for them. So
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
it was a really interesting collaboration. I created three different outfits based off their campaign, and then at the end, I got to, of course, wear them, as you can see on the screen.
Yeah.
And course, we at the end, what I didn't know about Glenfiddich is that they give back to the art community every year. And
cool.
this year they decided to invest in digital fashion. So we got to sell these outfits, digital fashion outfits, as NFTs, and then
Cool.
donate those proceeds to 3 different organizations, which I thought was like the cherry on the cake, because I
Yeah.
would have never expected that from them. But yeah, all in all, it was a really, really nice, really good project.
That's cool. So let me ask you this. After, learning so much about this and actually learning how to do this digitally, do you think you could do it physically? like
The actual sewing?
actually like sewing and stuff like that?
Me doing it?
And have you tried?
Maybe, but I think I have the capability of sending maybe what I've created in Clo 3D and send it straight to the manufacturers. At least that I know I'm able to do. So
That's cool.
I think what you guys discussed about, would you ever want to wear your fashion? I'm thinking, yes, it would be nice. I'm already creating it now.
Right?
It wouldn't hurt to create maybe a custom few pieces for myself or even for my friends and family.
That'd be amazing. That would be so amazing.
Right.
So as far as the texturing and stuff, are you doing all the texturing for all your pieces as well?
Yes. So I'm currently doing that via whether it's drawing on my iPad, some custom patterns or illustrations, and then I bring it into Illustrator, or I go into Substance Painter, and then I just bring it all in Cinema 4D.
Amazing. That's so cool. That's so cool. How hard is the UVing and stuff like that when bringing it over from the 3D Marvelous Designer or Clo 3D, bringing it into Cinema 4D? Like, do you have to unwrap and deal with that stuff?
It's a dream compared to Cinema 4D. Really, it's because when you create your garment or curtain, pillow, whatever it is, you create it in 2D, and then
Right. Yeah.
so that's already
Right.
flat. That is your UV map essentially, and then you just organize it in Clo 3D or Marvelous Designer, and it's already done. Yeah,
That's
no unwrapping needed. It's
Yeah.
already just done for you.
That's so cool. And does it easily translate over to Cinema 4D? Brings
yeah.
in all the UVs and everything. Oh, wow, that's crazy. That's so cool.
And then what do you do for rendering on these?
For rendering. For me, I always bring everything back to Cinema 4D because with my work, I create the 3D garment in Clo 3D, and then I like to tell a story in a 3D environment. So the 3D environment, of course, made in Cinema 4D, and then I use Redshift to render everything out.
Cool.
Because the textures in general, like some of these, you've got some incredible close-ups and things, and they're very detailed.
Yeah.
How are you going about doing like the textures themselves? Do they come from somewhere? Like, do you have like a library where you can pull that in? Are you doing custom patterns and textures too?
So I think it's one of my goals to create my own custom patterns when I can, because I feel like with my work, if I can do that, then people will recognize my style. So
Yeah, for sure.
and I would say a lot of my work is also a homage to my Chinese heritage. And I think, just using presets maybe from Substance Painter is not going to cut it for me, because there's a lot of intricacies within Chinese traditional garments and their patterns that they used to use that I'm very interested in highlighting and combining it in a modern way that shows off my own style. So for me, it's a way for me to also just create my own textures, which is pretty fun.
Amazing.
And I'm noticing too on this that you're streaming on a lot of platforms.
Yes.
Where and when do you stream? And like what platforms are you on currently?
Yeah, so I do weekly streams on Twitch, and it's an excuse for me to step away from client work actually and just get some personal work done every week. That is my time to just decompress and talk to my community and just create something fun. And then social media wise, I'm on every single one you can imagine.
The real big following on TikTok. Almost 100,000 people on TikTok.
Wow.
I'm all for TikTok. TikTok is It is the one app that I'm constantly on in a good and bad way.
Right.
Same here, but
we
mostly just for a
completely
bad way.
Yeah, we completely understand. Let's TikTok is life now. What's Facebook?
Absolutely.
I've never heard of Facebook. What is that?
Well, I just think it's perfect, especially if you create visual stuff and especially if it's animation. Like TikTok is definitely for you and you add, sounds and it's all video based, so, it makes sense.
You just have to do it the right way. Like I think when people first, and you've been on it for a long time, and I think when people first get into it, they think that they can just post what they've been posting on the other platforms. You really have to do it a little different.
Yes, yes.
But that being said, it is very good for designers if they know how to do it.
Exactly.
But you've been on since 2020, I think, right?
Yeah. That's right.
And we were talking a little bit before the show. It was the beginning of TikTok where a lot of people really got popular really quick, and now with saturation, it's a little harder for people to do.
Yes.
I'm distracted by this particular one. Oh, where did it go? It just flashed up in front of me. This one, oh my gosh, that is great.
Oh yes. Thank you.
This one, there was a behind the scenes, I think, somewhere. I may have lost it. Is it this one? You were showing, you were doing a fabric, and you did some sort of like translucent fabric. Is that this one? Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
I love the stuff with the flowers and the translucency. And my question is going to be like, how do you go about doing translucency or transparency for something like this? Like, how do you make that mesh, that see-through mesh?
You would use there's two ways I could talk about this. The first one that I did specifically for that piece is actually not transparent. It's actually if you imagine hexagons and they're all tessellated next to each other.
Yeah.
So they are just scaled down very small so that it looks like they're transparent, and it's a PNG, right? So anything that's black won't be seen, and then the hexagons are white, which means they are seen. And so that gives the illusion that it's transparent.
Right.
And then there's another way which I would use via Redshift and using the opacity, same thing. It's using the black and white map, and anything that's black won't be seen. Anything that's white will be seen. So if you put it in the middle, it will be kind of transparent.
So you're creating the actual mesh, and it's working. Which sometimes when I do something like that, I'm like, oh, is it going to look right, or is it going to create that weird pattern? What is it called? Moire, on the. But man, it just looks so good. And I'm also noticing in here that you do a lot on these Instagram previews of tying things, like belts and things. That looks very like, it looks like it has a potential to be very frustrating to tie something.
It's always frustrating to create belts or anything like tying knots in Clo 3D or Marvelous Designer, because they have the tendency to either come undone or the fabric goes through each other. So it is you need a lot of patience for doing that type of technique. And I think I've come to a point where I might just fake it, because it really does take a lot of time and patience to even create a knot in these 3D programs.
You just put like a fake knot in front of the belt to make it look like it's tied? Or...
Exactly. I think I might do that now.
Because
so when you're posing some of these people, do you have to get all the pieces done correctly, and then do you like in a T pose and then you build around it, and it'll still have to do the simulation as well when you're moving them, correct?
Yeah, so you always start with a T pose or A pose, because what you want is always the sleeves to be nice and clean and away from the body. And then you can create your clothing, your garment, and then at a later date you can create a transition from the T pose to your desired pose.
Oh, cool.
And
okay.
You would bake the movement from the avatar onto the garments within Clo 3D or Marvelous Designer.
Interesting. That's cool.
And you can there's pins, right? I'm sure there are. From what I remember, there's pins, and you can pin things.
That's right.
And, So how do you deal with issues of stretching? I'm sure after a while, like, you kind of have the workflow down, but I feel like the first thing that would happen to me is I would take the garment that I made, I put it on a T pose, and then the character would start walking, and things just would start not looking right. They would start stretching weird or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Do you have to go back and forth a lot and like fix it and bring it back in?
I'm actually rendering a piece right now, and the amount of times I had to re-simulate because there's just one thing that just messed up
Jeez.
or just didn't look as I've wanted it is yeah, it's annoying. It can be frustrating. And I think a lot of it of course comes down to practice. You will figure out what is the best way or the best settings to put things on because yeah, there are certain things you can do to negate or to reduce the amount of mistakes that will be done during simulation. And I think one of the biggest ones, learning curve for me was particle distance, they call it. It is similar to subdivisions. So the smaller your particle distance is, that means the higher the subdivisions. I don't know why it's backwards like that, but it is. And
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, I get that.
And then, of course, it will take longer to simulate, but the simulation will be more accurate. So that's what that's one of my tips for you guys listening.
Maybe it's similar to iterations in a way.
Well, what's interesting about that is like, so with cinema, I know cinema, when you're doing cinema cloth, you know, you always want to do a less dense mesh in order to get something that just doesn't do the thing, you know, doesn't mess up, so that it gets a much smoother thing, and then you throw a cloth
smoother,
whatever on it.
Smoother.
Yeah.
Quite
but that's really interesting. That's really interesting because I think also, like, when you're talking about like particle density or whatever, X Particles has cloth stuff inside of it, and it's similar in that you don't want to have it too dense, but I don't know, I think that's interesting that they do it a different way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, either way, just having more subdivisions. You don't want too much, you don't want too little.
Right.
For sure.
So what are some of your go ahead.
Is there a way to like smooth out the simulation after the fact, you know? Like, it's like, okay, this part I get some weird intersections. Is there like a smooth brush or something like that? I don't know.
Unfortunately not, but if there is a case where your mesh looks a bit low poly in some instances, you could always go into Cinema 4D and add the subdivision surface, and that would usually fix it up.
Cool.
But I've also seen in some of these Instagram clips and stuff, you can kind of pull on the clothing. You can move it around, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you can kind of like relax it where it needs to go.
That's right.
But I also want to ask about some of your favorite projects. You've told us about a couple. Going back in the archive here on Instagram, I don't know if there's anything specifically you want me to pull up, but you have so much. I don't even know where to start. It's just days and days of incredible outfits. How
much of your work currently is strictly the digital fashion stuff versus other 3D, you know, motion design stuff?
Sure. I mean, now I pretty much do 95% digital fashion. There has been a time last year where I might have picked up maybe a client work and did some motion design, 3D motion design for them, but now it's fully digital fashion for sure.
Amazing. And so clients are coming to you because you've made a name for yourself in this realm, in this space. That's so crazy.
I
That's
remember
so awesome.
when I first started out, there was not a lot of people doing what I do, and I thought, I don't want to be known as just doing digital fashion. Nobody else is doing this. And then I just kept doing digital fashion, and now it's stuck, and now that's what I'm doing now.
Right. That's funny. That's really funny.
Yeah, I'm looking at this AR stuff too.
Yes.
Your eyes follow.
I think
There you
digital
go.
fashion and AR is definitely a good combination to dive into
Absolutely.
if you
Yeah.
guys are interested as well.
Yeah.
I was about to say that actually, because the next, I don't know, maybe 20 years or so, I think we're going to see a huge increase in that. And of course, VR, I mean, VR is one thing. AR is really where that stuff is going to blow up, because you're going to have, what, 20 years from now, everybody's going to be walking around with their AR glasses on, and everybody will just be wearing, black
Mo-
t-shirt and black pants, and will just
No,
be
we'll all
wearing
be
their
wearing
digital
like
stuff.
motion tracker
Yeah.
outfits.
Right?
That's the only way you can
Yeah.
get people to see you in your outfits and stuff, is if you're wearing the tracker outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because right now I would say a lot of people still don't get digital fashion. They don't understand it because, of
Mhm.
course, right now it's all online and they
Mhm.
don't see how it can be used in the real world. But I think
Mhm.
once these AR glasses pick up and tech gets a lot better, and that's where we're going to see a lot more people accepting digital fashion for sure.
Yeah. And I think they're going to be the industry itself is going to be huge. It's going to be, you know, it's going to be like, oh, hey, such and such celebrity wore this thing, and then
Mhm.
everybody wants to buy that digital good, and then you're going to have like kind of, I'm sure you'll have the whole NFT crypto aspect of it, right? Like, oh, this thing, there's only 10 versions of this particular garment that you can buy,
Mhm.
that kind of a thing.
That's right. Yeah, and you could even link it to real world garments as well. So if you, for
Oh
example,
yeah.
created a certain, I don't know, digital garment NFT, and then it could link to maybe a real life NFT, which is like you said, limited, and it's
Mhm.
only if you buy that NFT, maybe it you will receive a physical garment or certain perks that you will only get if you buy the token.
Or vice versa, where you buy the physical piece and
Yeah,
then you get
They
the
send you the
digital piece in, you know,
or yeah.
in the metaverse, whatever
exactly.
metaverse.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So it works both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
right? I go buy some Gap jeans and I get to wear those Gap jeans in Fortnite,
Yeah.
That's
right?
right.
Yeah, that's what Kevin was saying here in the chat. He was like, does that encompass Fortnite skins? You know, yeah, absolutely. V-Bucks and doing what's the other one? Roblox. I'm sure all of these
Mhm.
it will start coming together. But I think what's going to happen too is then you're going to have to, watch out for the knockoffs as well.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
There's
yeah,
going to be
that's funny.
people like trying to like, you know, reverse engineer what other fashion designers have made online to try and like sell knockoffs. How
It's
meta.
happens. It happens all the time. It's
Yeah.
the internet. What can you do?
Right. It's very meta and also ironic that it's meta because it's in the metaverse.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna have your fake Prada glasses and fake
Literally
Prada
meta.
purses and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh man. I'm scared of the future. But have you actually worked on anything in that realm already? Like in the NFT GTF, what is the GTF
GLT
GTFO?
GLTF.
GLTF?
Yeah,
In
GLTF.
that realm?
Yes. I mean, I've sold some as NFTs, for example, and I've currently my latest project that I've worked with the Fabricant. They are a digital fashion house. We
That's
have
cool.
created some NFTs where it's based off the Chinese zodiacs, and anyone who's
Yes.
bought one of those, we've entered them into a Decentraland Fashion Week, which they are going to rebuild some of the garments in as with the Decentraland avatars. So yes,
That's
there's
cool.
different ways of wearing these digital garments.
So that brings up an interesting point because as we move into a more metaverse digital realm with a lot of these things, like I can see like the simulation that you're already having to do with all of this. I assume that the programmers involved in Decentraland or wherever, they've got to be doing something in order to like get the simulation correct.
Hmm.
It's like it brings up a whole new realm of problematic things to overcome you know.
Technical issues, yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these virtual worlds like Sandbox or Decentraland, they are currently voxels, so they're very low poly, which, it doesn't bother some people, but I would love to see a point where my beautiful renders with these flowy, organic, fabrics be replicated in another world instead of being simplified. So it also comes down to personal preference, but I would love to see that because there's a whole thing about, of course, with high poly meshes and having that taking a lot of memory, for example, is another issue with AR and those digital body filters where they got a certain file limit or file size you can do for these filters. So there's a lot of limitations right now, but I have confidence that it will get better in the future.
Yeah, when I did the Dorpy filter with Effect House for TikTok, I was actually surprised of what it could take in poly count because I had done a digital scan of the puppet and I think it was like 100,000 polys, and I was like, this is just an experiment. I'm just messing with this. I don't really care too much, and I published it anyway. It didn't give me any warnings or anything. Now it did when I tried to bring it in an Instagram filter. But the Effect House one came in and it actually worked, and they accepted it and it published. And I'm like, I guess they don't care about the poly count, or maybe it doesn't matter or whatever. And I did notice that there are some people using the filter on TikTok, and it's very jumpy.
Interesting.
I think we're on we're on the verge right now of like these phones and mobile devices being able to process a little better. But yeah, that's the problem because you've got to dumb it down for these other things. It doesn't look as good, and even if you could get the polys right, then there's the second level of that, right, which is the textures.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Because at taking it from a beautiful Redshift or Octane render, then exporting out a GLTF file, it's like it does not look the same.
No, it does not. Yeah.
No.
Are there any events coming up? Are there? Well, I guess are there events? I'm sure there are for these. Besides just like a fashion show or conference or something in general, are there like specific digital fashion shows like in real life?
Yeah, there has been. I remember there was one like Digital Fashion New York, for example, that they've done one, and so they're usually online conferences that happen throughout the year. But there's only been a few, a handful, I would say.
Interesting. Blue Woods is actually asking about shoes. Did you create shoes in Clo 3D?
No, I have not touched shoes. I would love to. I feel like maybe creating shoes in ZBrush might be better.
Right.
But it's not impossible to create shoes. You can actually create shoes in Clo 3D. And the reason why it's harder, I would say, is because with Clo 3D or Marvelous Designer, they don't really do rigid bodies.
Interesting.
They do fabrics. The hardest fabric they do is like this leather one, which you can fake a rigid body, but it's not the same as actually if you were to jump into Cinema 4D and actually put a rigid body. So it's hard to make things that are quite straight and rigid, for sure.
Right. Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah. I can see that, though. You've got to design, if you're doing shoes, you got to do all those layers and intricate patterns on the sole, and it's all, it's all like hard modeling, but it's, obviously they're slightly bendable, but I can see the difference there. It's not like you're going to run a cloth sim on any of that stuff.
Right. Yeah. Or making high heels or something like that, Those need to be rigid.
Yeah, I've seen people make high heels. I have not touched shoes at all. So we need to find someone who's good at making 3D shoes in Clo 3D or Marvelous Designer.
Have you done some ZBrush stuff as well?
I've attempted to, but the UI has thrown me off so many times.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is something I would love to get better at for sure.
I'm getting used to that interface.
Yeah,
Like
it's
Matt
not
says,
it's not
once
too
you
bad.
learn that everything's in alphabetical order,
100%.
then it's like,
Once you
oh,
understand,
okay.
yeah, except for everything on the right side, that's not an alphabetical
Yeah.
order.
Oh.
That's in order of importance,
Oh,
but everything
Yeah.
else
really
is in
sold it to
alphabetical.
be there.
Right?
It's funny when you get into ZBrush after a day or so, it starts, and you start to learn some of those things. Which that's the hardest thing with any program, right? Is just learning. If you're an experienced 3D person, you're like, I don't need to learn anything about 3D. I just need to know where this button is. Where's this
Right.
thing? And so once you start learning, and you start learning the pieces of ZBrush, you start understanding why they put it there.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, yes, this button isn't where you think it would be in another program, but also I kind of understand why you put it there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tough thing. You got to devote a lot of time to it. I'm trying, but
Yeah.
yeah. One of the questions, or not a question, but actually somebody says they're excited about your Domestika course. Are you doing a course?
Ah, yes. I just came back from Madrid, which is where I just filmed my Domestika
Fun.
course, and it's gonna be about my whole workflow process from like
Mhm.
Clo 3D to Cinema 4D to Redshift, and Substance Painter as well.
Cool.
Oh, man.
That's
So,
cool.
Um,
How much work are you doing in Substance?
That's exactly what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Substance Painter. Like I used to do all my texturing with just Illustrator and Photoshop before, but the magic of being able to paint onto your 3D model and actually see it, that to me has really sold it. And it's the same process as Photoshop and Illustrator, just you're able to have the capability of seeing it on a 3D model, which I find highly valuable.
Yeah. I also have been seeing, like Mellow Mograph sent us, he was working on a VR
yeah.
Substance stuff, and I guess they have a VR option now, and you can pop over to the headset. And I'm thinking, oh, well, that could be cool too, because if you're trying to really like, paint one of these, to be able to walk around it and like, or even do that thing where you step back and take a look and then like come back, like that's something you can't do. I mean, obviously you could zoom in on it on your screen, but I feel like if you could, step around a garment you were working on, how cool would that be?
Yeah, that would be awesome for sure.
What are some of the designers, or who are some of the designers or companies that you've worked for that you really liked?
For digital fashion, I've currently worked with 2 clients on that so far. So the first one, of course, was the Highsnobiety and Glenfiddich, the unexpected mixture between an alcohol brand and digital fashion.
Yeah.
Is totally unexpected. I think that has to be one of my favorite projects to date. But the one that I'm currently working on with Dell, that has not come out yet. It's coming out soon. But yeah, that one is gonna be interesting. Once it comes out, I'll send it over to you guys.
With
Yeah,
Dell.
totally.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And the nice thing about that is actually it relates to my work, as in it's not just a random brand that doesn't relate to 3D. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
it's still within the tech realm.
Cool.
Yeah. What kind of fashion goes with Dell? Are you making clothes
You'll
for
find out.
nerds? I think that's what we need, is clothes for nerds.
Yeah.
Are there, what was it? Louis Vuitton did something. Are there other big brands that are getting into this right now? Hopefully they're watching this.
Yeah, there's
this
a lot
space.
of luxury brands
Yeah.
coming in, like Balenciaga, Louis Vuitton. I think they could have executed it better, like 3D wise, technical wise. But as I said, there's a gap between fashion designers who come from 3D background. So a lot of 3D or digital fashion you see now, especially coming from big brands, I feel like their technical work could be improved.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I have any experience, but I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. 10 years, maybe? Do you think 10 years people will be wearing these,
Yeah,
you
maybe
know,
even
in AR?
5.
Yeah.
Yes,
See,
because
uh, a lot of it I know is like based on what we can do technology-wise and whatnot.
Yeah.
A lot of it probably battery life as
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, because if we're going to be wearing these glasses all day or whatever we're
Yeah.
going to be doing, it just kind of feels like, you know, they're going to have to figure out how to get more battery power, more processing power. You know, are the glasses going to be the monitor and it's powered by your phone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's still kind of a it's still a very new industry, but you can feel this coming with AR in
Yeah.
general.
I'm just
But it-
envisioning like Tony Stark and his multiple
Right.
screens in front of
Right.
him. He's just swiping in the air. But yeah, I would definitely love to see that. And I think, especially with the younger generation, they are just so adept to technology. They just get it in an instant. So you can just imagine them when these new technologies come in, they're just gonna understand it and get
Yeah.
it a lot faster than we do.
I'm interested to see, like, with the addition of Unreal 5 and the new what is it? Like, basically unlimited polygons.
Oh,
Oh.
nanite.
What nanite, yeah.
Mhm.
Like, you know, if brands start incorporating that into, like, you know, you get Snapchat or some of these other ones who are using Unreal or something similar in order to have unlimited polygons, and then you don't have to worry about, you know, bringing in a low poly mesh or something like that. That
Yeah.
will be crazy.
Absolutely, I agree. Unreal is just another level, and I do see they've even got a digital fashion course in Unreal now, I
Cool.
believe. Yeah. My friends that I worked with, the Fabricant, I believe they worked together with Unreal to build that course for people to start learning. So
Amazing.
I need to take a look at that actually. Now that
Yeah.
I'm mentioning it.
Yeah, totally.
Are there any gets, like, are there any brands in general that you're really like striving to work for, fashion wise, like big fashion brands, you know?
If I'm honest, not really. And I say that because currently I want to create my own brand, and I feel like if I was to start creating work for other fashion brands, I will fall back into that client relationship, which is something I want to kind of step away. And it's another thing that NFTs has really released me from, so that I don't rely too much on client work. And now I'm able to, if I want to do client work, I'm able to have that choice to do it. I'm not forced to do it just because I need to pay my bills on time.
Right.
Do you think some of these big companies have hesitation, like, to get into this, or?
Yes, for sure. I think with these brands, they need to see where's the use case, how to earn profit from this whole industry. But you know, you've got big brands like Nike and Adidas already jumping into the metaverse and selling NFTs, and it's happening. So as more and more brands do it, I think a lot of brands are already looking this way and seeing how they can implement their physical brand with the metaverse or with digital avatars and garments.
It's funny because some of these companies are so big to jump into it. Some of them are hesitant to jump into it. There's the opposite. And, you know, that's why you end up in the way that this is new right now. It's like people are jumping in and not sure what to do with it yet.
Yeah.
And you got the other ones waiting to find out if it's worth it. And that's why you end up with, like, there's literally like a Hyundai digital metaverse experience. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go hang out with, you know, in my Hyundai metaverse. It's like, okay, I don't think we figured that out yet. And I can see the hesitation, but I think it's important for these types of companies to at least explore it. You know,
For sure.
because it seems like it's important. What influences do you go to? Like, when you're trying to come up with an idea, it's like, are you looking from design? Are you pulling from design for experience? Are you pulling from certain people, certain real life designers? Where does that come from?
Yeah, so I guess I get most of my inspiration from traditional Chinese garments, and I'm a very visual person, so whether that's watching movies or dramas or like looking at pictures, that's where I usually get my inspiration from. I'm also really into streetwear and I look at images on that. I would say Pinterest is probably my go-to when looking for visual references, and Behance. But recently I was able to travel, which was great because I haven't done that because of, COVID. And, my latest piece is inspired by a color scheme that I saw in a shop, for example, which I wouldn't have got just by sitting at home. So for me, it's a mixture of traveling, looking at, especially when I'm looking at traditional Chinese dramas, I always analyze the set design or the costume design. So that's where I usually would get my inspiration from, for sure.
Cool. So it's not just the inspiration for the garment, but also maybe for like the story or the scene that you're building on top of that.
That's right, because I think with a lot of my work, I always have to add like a storytelling element to it, and I feel like adding the garment to a 3D scene gives more depth to the garment and the setting of where it's being worn and how it's being worn, and of course for me, lighting in 3D changes everything. It changes the mood, the atmosphere. Yeah. So I think it really does help to give more focus and highlight to the garments whilst also giving it a story and a purpose.
What was your favorite one? I'm going to ask two questions. What was your favorite and what was your most complicated?
Favorite work?
Yes. Your favorite one that you've completed so far. And you might have mentioned it already. I mean,
oh, that's a hard one. My favorite one is probably the project that I did for Highsnobiety and Glenfiddich, just because the storytelling aspect. I had to make 3 garments fit into the same world, and because the 3 garments were so different from each other, they were actually inspired by 3 different artists, and each artist has a different style. So to find a way to recreate their style in my style, but also not entirely rub away or throw away their story was challenging. But also I found that project really successful because I was able to present those 3 garments in the same surreal world that I wanted to create. So that was probably my favorite one for sure.
And what's the most like technically complex thing you've
most
had to
challenging
do? Challenging,
challenging one is probably the one that I'm rendering right now. It really has caused me so much pain for the past few days, just because there's certain types of garments you have to be careful of rendering or simulating, and it's for the reasons that I've mentioned before. The sleeve, especially between the gap between, I suppose, your arm and the hip to the armpit, that area, anything that's really flowy, that you would like to make that super long and flowy, that moves into another garment by accident. There's quite a lot of technical issues that I'm running into with the polygons not liking each other. So that is a type of garment I would love to make more, but I get so much pain by doing it that I try not to make this type of garment too much.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
VJ says he disagrees that younger people are more technically adept. He says he's around high school students all day and none of them have tech skills at all. Most don't even have a computer or want one. And I think that's a good point because, I mean, I'll take my daughter as an example, right? Like, she can use a computer. She's messed with After Effects a little bit, but she would still rather keyframe everything on her iPhone with this app that looks like it's so hard to use. And even in that, she's got a little more computer experience than most, I'd say. You know, high school students are just going to be all about their phone. They might not have a laptop or anything else, and it's a weird position because I think our age, all of us in general, we're a little bit older than the average, high school student right now or middle school student.
Sadly, yes.
And
Thank you for pointing that out again.
We've grown up with technology, though. We grew up with while technology was growing up.
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
we got to see, oh, this
We
is
don't
a
want to speak
computer.
for you, Steffi. We're speaking for ourselves mostly.
Right.
I don't know how
I mean, I'm
old you
assuming
are.
you're not in middle school, but but yeah, I mean, like we grew up with the technology, and your parents come home with a computer, and you like want to check it out. You don't have a phone or anything else, right? We will reach a point where people understand how to use technology, but don't understand the technology, and obviously we already kind of have that. But I'm talking about like I feel like my generation understands computers way better than any kid that's friends with my daughter because they grew up with it. And what's going to happen when we get to that point where people understand how to use it but just don't understand how to like the ins and outs of it?
Yeah.
How do you update a driver on your computer? Like it's hard because some of them may not have to learn how to do that until they are in college or something.
Yeah, that's true. But they have it easy, isn't it?
When I was your age,
I was yeah.
yeah,
Get off my lawn.
I had to wait like 10 minutes to see one frame. So, yeah, very interesting to see where that goes because as somebody who has basically a teen, I know that her, I don't know, her level of interest and her attention span has been ruined by TikTok and whatnot.
As
and
has
it's like,
mine.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
but if you
I
want to like
agree.
go in and do some sort of like, oh, I want to do digital clothing, like they're gonna want an app for the phone where you can do the digital clothing,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Do you think that we'll ever get to that point though, where you can easily create this stuff on a mobile device, or are we gonna still have computers?
Wow. I have never imagined a world without them.
Right?
But yeah, there's going to be apps where you can just, have presets, right? So it's not going to be so much different from how we've got, like, for example, in Cinema 4D, we've got presets to do certain stuff. It's going to be the same, but for apps, I think.
I just hear a lot of people talking about, oh, we won't need desktop someday. We won't need desktop someday. I'm like, are you sure?
Disagree.
Like, I just don't.
That
I
would
don't-
be great,
you know.
don't you think? Imagine if you could, have your tablet and then you don't need to have your bulky 3090, 3080 sitting by to render something. Or we will have, cloud computing where you can just hook up to a powerful computer and you could just do everything on a tablet or a screen. And yeah, I could totally see that happening.
I
Yeah.
feel like we are going to get to the point where, and maybe this will be how this happens, where we can lose our desktops, or at least not have to be able to have some sort of system where we have to have so much control. Like, if you're going to do a video right now that's, let's say, like a high-grade CG production, well, you have to have your desktop. You've got to have Cinema 4D. You've got to have, like, Photoshop and all of that, right? And there's a reason. Because if you want something very specific, you have to make it yourself. But let's say 20 years from now, we got like Dolly 2 or Dolly 14 or, whatever. Dolly 2 right now, you literally can say just about anything. And you type it in and it makes whatever you ask for. So let's say you were doing a garment. You said, I want a garment with long sleeves and it's going to have yellow stripes on it. And you're going to be able to dictate that to AI, and I wonder, like, at what point you just won't need the desktop because your voice is descriptive enough.
That's like the holodeck when they're trying to build something, right? They're trying to figure out what it looked like in their dream, and they're like, no, make this longer. Make it. I need a clicky sound in the background.
I know the episode you're talking about.
You know the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a way you can modify Dolly 2. I'm just waiting for my invite to come from Dolly 2, but I've been watching all these videos.
Yeah.
And there's like, you can fine tune. You can say, I want a hamburger chair. And then you get a bunch of hamburger chairs and you say, yeah, but I need sesame seed buns on it. And then I like this, but I need a slightly different variation. And so then you can dive into the variations and change it. And that would be very interesting to be able to dictate that to a computer. And tell it what you want garment-wise and skip a lot of these steps. But I have a feeling that your job will not be rendered obsolete for quite a while.
I'm actually looking forward to that. Everything you're describing with AI, I feel like that would cut me so much time. And you know, being a creative, right? I feel like AI can't replace what we creatives do, but perhaps maybe certain. Well, I think it can be used as a tool to cut out certain lethargic jobs that we don't need to do, like, for example, rotoscoping. But no offense to anyone who does that for their job. But, you know, AI will be able to be a tool to help us, I think, and we'll be able to more so do art directing. And I'm looking forward to that, really.
VJ is saying, you know, my daughter's an exception because our kids know each other. But most high school students won't even have a concept of, or don't even have a concept what a folder is, and that's such a great point. Like my daughter, when I'm talking about saving a file, like it is just the weirdest thing to her. Because on your phone, it's just like, oh, that's always just going to be on your phone, or it's in this app or whatever. The concept of folders and files and folders,
or saving in general.
Saving.
See, that's why I never save anything.
Oh my
like
gosh.
I'm awful about saving because I just let my computer auto save all the time. You know, it's like if my computer crashes or if my stuff crashes, I lose at most 5 minutes because I have a 5-minute autosave happening all the time, you know?
I don't trust I do not trust it to save. I just don't. You know?
What? I love autosave.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know. I got the muscle memory for Control S, and I just hit Control S all the time because I
mean, I do that too, even though I've got autosave on, but
for me, it's like when I know that I'm about to do something that the computer isn't going to like, my muscle memory hits that button. It's like, okay, I'm about to run this sim, and then the muscle memory kicks in because I know as soon as I hit sim and it crashes, if I haven't saved, 5 minutes is a long time sometimes. Right? You know?
Yeah.
You can accomplish a lot in 5 minutes that you can forget, or you could really tweak something in just right and then crash, and you're like, oh no, I had it just right, and then you can't get back. So I still do it. Jag says everyone just instantly saved their project.
Saved their projects because
as they were listening.
Yeah.
VJ says, I for one do not welcome the mobile OS overlords. Yeah,
Steffi, Steffi, where do you see this industry going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I see it booming for sure, because the combination between what we just discussed about combining it with gaming, and of course there's already a lot of money being poured into gaming skins and free what they call it, like rewards, 3D rewards that they have in games. So there's a lot of utility in that, and then of course with actual fashion brands combining it to not only their physical but having a digital counterpart. And also a lot more people are going to have a digital version of themselves, whether that's an avatar or whether that's an AR filters. And so with digital avatars, of course, you want to customize them. And with customizing comes with digital fashion and accessories and all of that jazz. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of use cases for it in the future. We're just hoping, of course, with the technology getting better and better, that it will all just grow. At least that's my point of view for sure.
Do you think, as a 3D artist myself, would you recommend me jumping into Marvelous or Clo 3D in order to kind of get, like, in the next few years, will I need to know this stuff? And would it be advantageous for me to get into it now?
Absolutely. But only if you're really interested in it, you know? There's nothing worse than jumping into something and you hate it. So I would say if you have an inkling of creating something like a digital fashion or creating, I don't know, it could be like fabrics or bags or like anything. It could be accessories, as I talked about. You could be creating accessories for brands. and it might not just be just clothing. So having some sort of knowledge within Marvelous Design or Clo 3D is definitely advantageous, I would say. And yeah, now is the time to learn, because there are definitely a lot more YouTube tutorials now than there was 2 years ago. I kid you not. When I was looking 2 years ago, I was just I honestly recommend Travis David's David's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Cool.
He is his YouTube channel is gold, absolute gold, for like combining, because he comes from a 3D background as well, so he combines 3D programs with Marvelous Designer and Clo 3D. So although they are old tutorials, they're pretty good, and they're what I learned from actually. So but now there's a lot of new people coming in and doing their own tutorials, which super useful for anyone who wants to learn.
What would be a good resource for Marvelous? Because the biggest problem that I have is just the UIs don't match from tutorial to tutorial. What would be a go-to?
Yes, they did that recent update. So actually saying that Clo 3D and Marvelous Designers opened up their own YouTube channels within the past 2 years.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I think before, when I started learning, they didn't really have their own YouTube channels, or they weren't posting consistently, but now they are. So I would recommend starting there. And yeah, there are a few people I can recommend. There are this dude called Very Vague, VERYVEIG. And there's a lot of people who post time lapse, which I know sometimes can be long to trawl through a video to see every
I love
step.
time lapse. I absolutely love time lapse videos.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Some people hate it, but I guess if you guys love it, then yes, there's this person who just posts time lapse of their work, and they are very good at what they do. I think they are probably like, they do character design, or they do it for games. So they're the type of their work is the type of work you would see on ArtStation, the people who do really good like game concept and character design, which also feeds into digital fashion.
Time lapses can be valuable because and way back in the day I used to post some or whatever, but I feel like they can be valuable when you really want to learn how to do something super specific. So like there may not be a tutorial on how to do one very specific thing, but you might see a video and say, oh, how did they do that? Oh, they have a time lapse. And you just click to the point you want to see. I mean, you do that with tutorials anyway, right?
Yeah.
I just need to know this one thing. I'm going to go to like 25 minutes and 42 seconds. And that's kind of like time lapses. If they're slow enough, you know, if they put them up, you know, and they're maybe a few minutes long, so you can actually, it doesn't skip over that little part in the time lapse, you know, stop and say, oh, okay, this is the hierarchy. This is what they added. This is an effector they did. This is how they did the dynamics. And it is nice. It's just kind of hard to make a channel with all time lapses. You know.
I love watching sculpting time lapses. I think sculpting time lapses are absolutely incredible. You know, and I always feel like I learn so much just watching someone work, you know, in ZBrush or in C4D sculpting or whatever, you know. So
we have a little game that we play. If this is your first time on the show, sometimes we have people on more than once, so we tend not to do this every time, but it's called Mograph Recommends, and the way that we do this is we kind of do like it's like, you know, lightning round kind of thing. And we're gonna just fire off these questions and look for your answers. Now these don't have necessarily anything to do with 3D, but we find that they let people know a little bit more about you and your influences things. So influences and things. So number one is going to be, what is your favorite movie?
Oh my goodness, that's the hardest one. Okay, I can say my favorite animation for sure. My favorite animation is Howl's Moving Castle by Ghibli Animation.
Okay, I don't know that one.
Know anything about that? See?
Oh no, you need to watch it.
I don't know much Ghibli. I should. I know.
They are just what I grew up watching, and I suppose they're quite whimsical. The storyline's always quite whimsical with them. So there are a few I can recommend. One is Howl's Moving Castle, and they're also a little bit of fantasy sometimes. So, you know, they just take you to another world, another realm, and the animation is just one, it's iconic, it's recognizable, the style, the art style, and also it's just beautiful to look at.
And then
I
what
saw
about
Princess Mononoke a long time ago, but I think that was
Yes,
about it. Yeah.
that's another good one as well.
Mhm.
Yes.
And how about TV show? And I will say that these can be like an all-time favorite, or this could be just something recent that
Correct,
you really
yeah.
like.
TV show. Oh gosh, what have I been? I've been binging because I've actually trying to recover from COVID right now.
Same.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So I'm just stuck at home all the time. So one TV show I've been watching is currently on Netflix. It's called Queen of the South.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Haven't heard of that one.
it's about the drug ring in Mexico and this main character fighting her way from the bottom all the way to the top.
Awesome. Okay.
Jags. In all
House
caps.
Moving Castle is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
sorry, Howl's Moving Castle, the soundtrack, beautiful. The soundtrack is very recognizable in Ghibli animation as well.
Now, how about music?
Oh, music. Favorite music?
Mm-hmm.
I listen to a realm of music, but currently
I'll be right back, Dave.
Okay.
Currently, I've been listening to this Chinese R&B artist, although I can't pronounce her name. I'm so sorry. But
Well, that's how I
Because
am
I
with
was-
like, you know,
yeah.
with Spotify and things. Like when I find a band I like half
Yeah.
the time now I don't even remember their name because I've just marked it. Oh, hey, I like that. You know, it's a favorite,
Yeah.
and I hear it all the time, and I couldn't even tell you who it is, but.
And the funniest thing is, I found this song from TikTok, and I was like, "Wow, this sounds good. Let
Yeah.
me add it on Spotify." And then that's it. That's what I've been listening to this week. Sorry to that R&B artist that I can't remember your name, but your music's good.
I've done that before with TikTok. It's like I really like that, and I'll like Shazam it and put them on my Spotify immediately.
Exactly.
Do you listen to the same thing while you work and in general, or do you have to have you have to have a certain vibe for work?
Depends what mood I'm in. If I need to like hype myself up and get work done for a deadline, or if I'm just relaxing, chilling. If I'm relaxing and chilling, it's always a lo-fi hip hop beat in the
Yeah.
background.
Yeah.
I just need something
Got
to
to.
listen to whilst I'm working, whether it's either music or it's either like an old movie that I've watched before or a TV drama. And then if I need to be in the zone and focus or just like need to get stuff done for a deadline, then I put on maybe some like pop music or something to just like get me going and
Yeah.
get my energy levels up.
Yeah, I definitely have a different soundtrack for project is due in 30 minutes, have to finish right now. Like it's a playlist, like powerful dubstep playlist,
Yeah.
to make me go faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to take all of the chill hop I was listening to and take it offline.
Yeah.
Because it was skewing all of my listening stats for Spotify, and I was realizing like at the end of the year they're like, "Well, you really like this song," and I'm like, "Well, that's because I play it every week before the podcast." Like,
Yeah. That's happened to me as well.
yeah, it skews everything. I wish you could say just everything, but show me everything but chill hop. Just ignore
Exactly.
everything. Leo in the chat says, "Is it J?
J. Joe.
Joe?
Joe? Yeah, J. Joe? No,
that who it was?
it's not. It's not. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Gonna try find that artist, but it's a female.
Do you listen to any podcasts while you work as well, or is that tough? I know some people can't do the two things at once.
I used to. There was one that Haley Atkins, I believe you had
Uh-huh.
her recently.
Yeah.
I used to listen to some of hers, and sometimes I put on documentaries and podcasts, but I don't listen to them as often as I do to music, for sure.
Kevin says Queen of the South is pretty good, but Breaking Bad is the best show he's ever seen, except maybe The Wire. That's our running gag. It's been a
Actually,
while,
saying
Kevin.
that, I've never watched Breaking Bad.
Oh no! Oh
maybe-
no!
Do you recommend? Maybe I should get
Oh.
into it.
I think I might be about to go watch it for the third time because Better Call Saul is so good, maybe even better. I'm curious if anybody has actually is actually watching Better Call Saul first, because it is kind of a prequel, and then going over to that. I'd be interested to see how people enjoy Breaking Bad after Better Call Saul. I would definitely recommend it, and then I would recommend Better Call Saul after, because it is just phenomenal. Next question is, what is your favorite plugin? Cannot be a render engine.
Oh, shame. Okay. My favorite plugin that I use is probably Forester, and just because I like using the flowers and grass and trees. Like I used to use Quixel before, and they're like assets, and that just took a very long time to just import everything individually, perhaps. And now with Forester, after using that, I'm like, yeah, I could put like 10,000 grass onto this plane and it's no problem. So, and you can also art direct it, and it's pretty powerful in that sense.
And then, what is your muscle memory app on your phone? I think I know the answer to this one, but what do you always click on when you open your phone?
It's got to be TikTok.
Yeah.
Absolutely glued to that app.
Yeah.
Honestly, just for either entertainment or even just for me posting my work on there, I'm just constantly on it, which, yeah, it has its perks, and also probably on social media too much.
Yeah. Now, how about video games?
Oh, video games. I have played one recently. It's called Lost Ark. It is an RPG game where I'm a wizard on there, and I love anything to do with wizards. I love having like superpowers. It's great.
What about what's the one everyone's playing now, Matt? I'm not into Elden
Dark
Ring?
Souls?
Elden Ring.
Elden
right?
Ring, yeah.
Oh,
Elden
I've
Ring.
heard of that one. No, I haven't tried that one yet. I've heard of that one. There's been a rave about that one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what
I
all
hear
the
that
kids
it's
are
very
doing.
hard.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I've got to check it out.
And then the last one, this is a tough one. This is your favorite life hack. And this could be something like fun, or it could be something super practical.
Oh.
One of the things that we say is Mitch Meyer's life hack, which is you turn the toaster on its side to get some bomb-ass grilled cheese. You know? So this could be but it could be something like that. It could be productivity. It could be one of my things also, one of my life hacks is when you're in the car and you're getting gas and you're sitting there waiting, that's when you take a look around your truck and clean it out and throw all the junk away and the old cups and things.
It's pretty useful. Life hack? Oh, God. I don't know if I have a life hack, but I have some advice I can give for sure.
All right.
Let's do it.
Especially
Yeah.
for a lot of 3D artists that are very introverted. And I used to be quite introverted myself, but now more so comfortable speaking out.
That's good.
Becoming an adult, I've become more vocal about what I want, which I know can be hard for a lot of 3D artists. So I think don't be afraid to say no. That's the biggest one that I ride by now, especially when you're asking your client maybe for like an extra extension or deadline, or asking for more pay, or asking or just saying no to as someone saying, hey Steph, do you have time to just squeeze in this little job for me, or like, can you tweak this? You could just say no, because the worst thing that could happen from it is that they just like, there's that rejection in that moment, but then everyone just moves on. So you're not gonna know what opportunity you're gonna lose unless you say no. And most of the time, it's okay. Nothing bad really happens.
Yeah. Cool.
It reminds me of a TikTok that I saw a few days ago.
Yeah.
It's these two guys, and one of them was like, man, I've just got way too much work to do right now. And the other one said, raise your rates. He goes, what? No, I can't raise my rates. I'll lose a bunch of clients if I do that. And he goes, yeah, but you'll have more free time, and the ones who, most of them will stay with you, and you'll make more money. And so the ones that don't want to pay more, you'll actually have more time. Just raise your rates. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Cool. Well, if people want to find you on the internets, where should they go? What should they look up?
Yeah, so my handle on every single social media channel is Steffi Fung. So please do check me out. I would say go to my, of course, TikTok, and my Twitch and Twitter. That's where I hang out the most. Instagram, sorry, I do love you, but not that much anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is Steffi?
Sorry, Zuckerberg.
Is Stephanie short for Stephanie? I didn't know if you
Steffi.
went by both.
Yeah.
I meant to ask you earlier if you go by
Sure.
both or just
Mhm.
specifically Steffi. Okay, cool.
So my full name is Stephanie, yes.
Okay.
And the reason why I went with Steffi is because it was the only version that I could get on every single social media handle.
Nice.
There you go. Perfect.
I would have went with Steph Fung
Uh-huh.
without the Y, but
Uh-huh.
you know, just to have consistency,
Right.
Steffi was the designated one that worked across
That's
all
awesome.
channels.
That's
Awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, you'll have to hop into our Slack and our Discord for
Mhm.
people who are interested, in clothing and fashion as well, because I'm sure there's plenty of people.
Yeah, I'm happy
What
to
day-
answer any questions.
What days do you broadcast on Twitch?
Yeah.
I stream every Thursdays. I call
Okay.
it streaming
Okay.
Thursdays.
Okay,
Thursday, cool. What time?
Yeah.
And this is what's UK time? Is that GMT? Is that GMT?
No,
It's
GMT is
BST now.
Oh,
So
okay.
British summertime. I stream
Okay.
usually about 8 p.m. British summertime.
Okay.
Okay, so that's early for us.
It'd be
That's
about
good.
2 Central, I
Yeah.
think, right now. If
Perfect.
I'm not mistaken.
All right.
Cool. All right. Well, we
Steffi,
appreciate
thank you so much for being here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time. Again, check out Steffi online, and you can rate us on iTunes, leave a review. You can subscribe on your podcatcher of choice and help get our ratings up. You can say you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt with the Mograph logo tee, the Feel the Bab 2020 shirt. All the profits from that go to Doctors Without Borders.
We're gonna need a 2024 shirt here soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The That Render is Fire shirt, which you're only allowed to wear ironically. Unless you're
shams.
Render Things t-shirt, hoodie, and long sleeve tee. I forgot to mention that. And then the Mograph Blandishment shirt. So get all of that at mograph.com. And you can also check us out on YouTube as well. And until next time, we're going to get out of here. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Steph.
Have a good one.
Later, yo.
All right. Stand by. Stand